Good evening, everybody. Thanks for tuning in again for another episode of Reasonable Doubt, brought to you by the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association. I'm your host, Jimmy Ardwan, and the guy across from me with the purple tie, that's my co-host, Julio Vela. What's going on, my friend?
Hey, man. Anytime we have a show with the three biggest players in my world and in the city and county, it's a good day. It's a great day.
Well, we've got a big show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. For the next hour, we're going to be sitting here talking with Harris County District Attorney Kim Ogg herself. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
You were early for the show. You were so early you came
I was
last
a week early.
We also have with us Harris County's Chief Public Defender, Alex Bunin. Alex,
thank you for having
thanks
me.
for coming back on.
Great.
You were here, I think, last month, right before the hurricane.
Very soon.
So we appreciate you coming back. And we also have the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association President, Tucker Graves. Tucker, this is your first time on with us.
With y'all. I've been on the show before in the past, just as a regular guest.
Right.
But in my duties as president, this is the first.
I want to say, I also think this is a first because I do believe, now you came on when you were a candidate on our show.
I did.
But you, I think you are the first district attorney to actually come on this show. Now, Rob Fickman or Murray or Tate or anybody else can correct me, but I believe that you are the actual first sitting district attorney to come on Reasonable Doubt since the inception of this show. So,
well, it's an honor.
yeah, well, it's an honor for us as well. But we're going to be here, like I said, for the next hour, talking about all things post-Harvey with, as Julio alluded to, three of the major decision makers, at least on our side of the street. We'll talk about what's going on the judicial side of the street a little bit as well. But we'll open up the phone lines, take your phone calls. 713-807-1794 is the number if you want to get in on our conversation. Give us any comments. I've also got Twitter up, so you can hit us up at HCCLA_TV and send us your question and comments right there, and I'll ask it on the air. I guess where I want to start is, I know you guys at the PD's office got some new old office space this week over at the old jail.
Talking about that.
Yeah.
We are in what we lovingly call the old jail.
Right.
Although when I started practicing, it was a brand new jail. It got old really quick. And so that's 1301 Franklin. They have cleaned out what's called the warrants division when the sheriff's department was there. They actually recarpeted, painted, and we're cramming, I don't know how many people in there. We also have some space in the basement of the administrative building, 1001 Preston. So between those two spaces, we're going to try to jam everybody in.
Are you doing like that new wave office concept where it's open and everybody can?
It's very open.
You know, espouse their ideas.
There were actually cubicles already there, so we're using that concept. We have to thank the district attorney's office. Vivian King had ordered many desks for them, and there were rentals, and they were more than they needed. So we talked to her and worked that out, and we got a lot of those in there. So we're making it work.
But at least y'all are in one building. You guys.
We're in 9.
You guys are spread out.
We're nationwide.
You're taking your show all across the Houston area.
We are, and it's our public stance is that we've moved from one government building to another. But in truth, it is disruptive, and it's challenging, just the logistics of getting the people and files from the Galleria area, where two of our buildings are, over to court by 8:30 for the regular docket routine, and then for a 12:30 docket with the files that come from grand jury and the night before's preliminary appearance docket, and then the regular docket. Challenging, and all the more reason to go paperless, which is what we're going to use this disaster for. I think it's an opportunity.
You know, that's what we were talking about last week, is this is an opportunity on so many levels to change so many things. I mean, the three of y'all are in kind of the best positions of anybody to really be advocating for those changes to happen right now.
And we hope they do. I mean, we're trying to get the judges on board with some of the things that all three of us want to do in the way they run their dockets. We're getting some pushback at the moment, but we're still going to be on the same page. And hopefully, this is an opportunity, like you say, to make some long-lasting, meaningful changes that'll benefit the county, our clients, and make our workload a little bit easier.
And Kim, you talked about going paperless, and I saw some stuff out there that said, you know, one of the biggest concerns is security. Obviously, we've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, just today, the SEC got hacked. It revealed that they got hacked over a year ago and didn't even know about it, and didn't find out about it till I think last month, and they're now just disclosing it to the public. So, you know, we've had the Equifax hack. And so, I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that say, you know, look, you're going to have people's personal information, their criminal backgrounds, everything about them. In terms of being paperless and putting everything on a secure server, what have you discussed with your team in terms of how to make that a secure server and also be able to share it with the defense bar?
We discussed that banks, hospitals, institutions that maintain private information do so at a variety of levels of security. And obviously we need a lot of security, but the world is paperless. Only this courthouse of all the judicial systems in Harris County continues to use paper files, continues to use a docket system that is wasteful and redundant, and that unfortunately can pressure people into pleading guilty, I think, just out of frustration and missing work. And so all of those things now can be changed. We have the leadership in place, and as practitioners, I'm committed to working with the defense bar, which I was once part of, and to working in collaboration, not just with the public defender, but with the private defense bar, to come up with some reasonable plans to propose, and we hope that some judges will get on board with it. But we're all looking for fewer docket settings, longer gaps in between, and I think we can be expected as lawyers, like we are in the civil and federal system, to meet out-of-court deadlines for discovery. And the way we hope to deal with that is through our portal system. Like e-discovery, we make some evidence available right now on our new GEM system, and it's available to the defense. We just don't have all the evidence up. And so I'm working with our IT department. Those are the three things I talked about today, going with our IT director, going paperless, e-filing, which is coming. We're the last man out. Chris Daniels is yet to get that accomplished, but I'm sure he will meet his statutory deadline. And then e-discovery. How do we make our information and police evidence available to you all quicker so that we can move these cases through and get people a final disposition more quickly? I think it benefits victims, I think it benefits the community, and I think it benefits the accused.
Alex, what are your thoughts on e-discovery?
I'm all for that discussion. E-filing, I practiced as solely in federal court for 16 years, and in fact, I was chair of a committee with the Department of Justice and the Administrative Office of U.S. Courts. It was called a Committee on Electronic Discovery, and what we found was everybody wanted to do that, but there were a lot of different systems that didn't talk to each other, and that's usually the biggest problem, is that some agency has invested in some kind of system of saving documents, and it's not easy for other people to read it or get copies of it. So that's really the hardest part. I don't think the buy-in part is as hard as making sure everyone is talking in the same language, able to exchange documents. That's usually the sticking point.
Well, I think if we had e-filing right now, how easy it would be for what we're doing, what we're going through with the, like you said, the files and boxes everywhere else. If we had e-filing right now, everything would just be uploaded, and you wouldn't be scurrying.
Well, and that's where we're going to be. You can't point to any other system in Harris County that is as antiquated as our current criminal justice filing system. Dragging files to court, coming for repeated non-issue settings that have no meaning other than to make everybody show up. It eats at hired lawyers' profit margin. It's bad for victims in terms of their resolution and getting on with their lives, and I think it's upsetting to those who are accused. They wait longer in jail, and if they're out on bond, they can't get back to their ordinary lives. And so the delay benefits no one other than, and this is all within the control of the courts. And so, I hope that they'll take a look around them and drag our system into the 21st century. I know that we're trying to.
Well, and especially right now, I mean, it's a system where you've got a real problem cramming all these people into downtown. You've got repair crews taking up parking. You've got judges cram two to a courtroom, and the DAs are on one half of the room for one court, on the other half of the room for the other court in some instances, and nothing's getting done because
We
we're
need
not
trials.
We're not going to have a trial
We
until
need trials. That's how you move cases
Right.
along, either the fear of trial or
Right.
the actual trial. And it's important that our judicial resources be used more wisely. I think it's going to be a campaign issue for a lot of the folks who hope to become judges. I hope they'll consider weekend dockets. I hope they'll consider evening dockets. I hope they'll try and make our system more accommodating to the average person.
What? And here's something I thought about, and I thought about it after last week's show, because we were talking about the building itself at 1201 Franklin, and we've heard varying reports about everybody has their own. Oh, I've heard this on the street that it's going to get blown up or it's going to get redone. That it's going to cost $110 million to fix it, but only $120 million if we want to blow the thing up and start over again. But what about this? I just thought if they're going to start over, why could you not do what they do in Los Angeles, for instance, and divide the courts into separate regions of Harris County? And you actually have, 4 or 6 courts out on the west side, 4 or 6 courts up on the north side, a few out on the east side, a few at central, and a few on the south side. I mean, maybe that's not possible with your office and how it would spread out.
We're set for it now.
You are. I mean, but I mean,
We're all over town.
In terms of not having this mass crush of humanity coming into downtown Houston every week just to make all these non-issue settings, it seems to me it works in LA. I mean, they've got their court system spread out so people out in the valley aren't driving all the way into downtown LA and taking 3 hours to commute in just to go for a court appearance. I mean, why couldn't something like that be done here?
Well, it's just a matter of political will. And the dockets are within the lane of the judges, and I think with the practitioners, this may be the first time that the prosecution and the defense bar, both hired and appointed, have agreed so readily and quickly to reform, with the judges being the only people not apparently ready for reform. It appears that the status quo is what this group is comfortable with, and I would urge them to reconsider that. In fact, I have been urging it.
We both have. We've both been in contact with the judges, the head judges for both the county courts and the district court. We had numerous conversations with other judges. We gave them a list of what we would like to see done. I don't think they did one thing.
Well,
Tucker, what's your opinion on docket control, and have you found any common ground with the district attorney's office and the public defender's office?
Well, Kim and I have discussed, like they do in the federal system, a scheduling order where things are laid out in front, and she talked about that a few minutes ago, and I suggested that to several judges and was immediately said, no, that's never going to happen here. What we would really like to happen, to ease this process for our clients, for the system, is if you're not going to have anything done, if it's not going to be a plea or a contested matter, why does the client need to come to court? That there's just no reason for that. Particularly now, when people have flooded homes, they have car issues, things like that. We ought to at least be setting people that are out on bond off as far as possible instead of having them come in every 30 days just so the judge can manage their docket and see what the heck's going on.
Have you found any common ground with that, and what are your opinions on it?
I believe that staggered dockets, the way the federal courts do it in conjunction with scheduling orders, where basically you come into court for an initial bail appearance, judge determines whether the person is too dangerous to release or should be released on bail. And after that, there are out-of-court deadlines that grown-up lawyers meet every day. And that's one of the concerns I've heard expressed by judges, is that somehow we won't get our work done if we're not in front of them. But in truth, these needless settings make it harder to get our work done, to get the discovery that we need from the law enforcement agencies. So I think a system that doesn't compromise people's work and their employment, especially at a time when our region is under such economic duress, is important. These things are not soft on crime. This is just smart on crime. And when you've got the bar agreeing and a lot of judges up for election, I'd suggest that the dockets are the new battleground for reform.
As a chief public defender, and you've worked throughout the country, have you seen these types of ideas work?
I've seen situation. I've certainly practiced in federal court where we have scheduling orders and we don't show up to court all the time, and we do get our business done with the prosecutors on outside of the court, and I think that can be done. I don't think you have to show up to court to talk to a prosecutor or to see your client, which has kind of traditionally been the way in Harris County, is that a lot of lawyers just wait till they have a court setting if they have an in-custody client, because they'll be there in the holding cell, they'll be able to talk about the file with them. And it's we've kind of grown up around that, but that's not the best practice.
We all know that that's an inadequate way to handle somebody's constitutional rights. We know it on the prosecution side, and so it's interesting, the Sheriff's Department is in agreement as well. They recently surveyed an average docket. They brought over 800 inmates. This is post-Harvey, so it's extremely difficult for them. Brought over 800 inmates, and in that day, about 360 were seen by the court. The rest languished in holding cells. And so it's an ineffective place for counsel to try and communicate with their client because it's not private. Bailiffs are around, other inmates are around, other lawyers are around. It's not professional. And when it comes, we wouldn't meet victims in the courtroom for the first time. So I think more can be expected of lawyers if the bar leaders, if we ourselves expect more of our people. And I know I expect our prosecutors to be ready, to have their to-dos done, and when they can't, to be prepared to show why it was reasonable that they couldn't. And if that can be done at a hearing. And so in federal court, when you need a hearing, you file a motion. You give the other side 3 days notice, you get your motion heard, and otherwise the courts are generally engaged in trials. And if we could increase our judicial appetite for people and trials, I think that we could much more handily deal with 110,000 cases that our office files each year. That's a lot of lives disrupted on both sides of the issue, both the victims and the accused.
You know what they say, good things happen when you set it for trial. I mean, I think that cuts both ways. I think it cuts both ways.
Yeah, there's just so much that could be done. I mean, we talked about actually issuing scheduling orders. I'm optimistic, though. I mean, we had, I think, when Ryan Patrick was on the bench, he issued scheduling orders. Am I wrong about that? But I think he started kind of towards the end anyway, before he got unelected, I think, or got defeated in the election. I think he started issuing scheduling orders. That court didn't implode upon itself.
Right.
So, I mean, it can be done.
But whether you call them scheduling orders or just simply allow much more time for the parties to do what they need to do and not drag defendants into court, I think that's what we all agree.
We believe that an average, all of us sitting here believe that an average of 3 settings would do it. Your preliminary settings set conditions of bail or to argue bail, from y'all's point, to argue for release. Motion settings if the parties can't agree on something, so it'll be heard in front of the court. And then a plea or trial setting with some certainty. Not a trial schedule that necessarily implies that both sides will be given a freebie reset.
Right.
Just doesn't work that way in other courts. And so I'm going to remain optimistic that we're going to make some ground here, because I think that they're going to continue to hear from us. I ran some cost calculations on it as well in anticipation of this show. And the average cost is about a little over $300 per setting per defendant. Average number of settings in felony court, 9.5. Average number of settings in misdemeanor court, 6.5. So, I think that the $350 estimation of what it costs the system, courts, bailiffs, prosecutors, appointed counsel, is under, it's a very conservative estimate that it's around $350. The average Houstonian makes $20 an hour, so they're missing at least 6 hours work. And I think what you get into is a plea mill situation where people just want to get it over with. From our side, we have victims that have waited 4, 5, 6 years for resolution in their cases, rape victims who are no longer able to withstand the pressure of delay and just want to move on with their lives, serious cases. And I think that our constituents and Houstonians deserve something better than a system that appears to work for nobody other than the judges setting the dockets.
Well, and I heard, I guess, what was it, either last week or whenever we came back, I mean, y'all's office had a stack of dismissals in courts in terms of prioritizing what cases really need to be prosecuted at this point.
Right. We did a quick review of 756 jail cases in on state jail felonies, possession of controlled substance under a gram. Ran the costs on that. The average cost per case is around $10,000. And so we dismissed 110 cases. We saved about $1 million. Now, what we need in this county is a place to divert those individuals to. We need treatment beds for addiction, and we need mental health beds for folks who are suffering from mental illness. And I certainly wouldn't consider diverting people who are a true public safety threat, but these folks in general aren't. And so we're trying to do a better job screening those cases at the front door. And law enforcement has been unbelievably supportive. They want to get to the real heart of the matter. They want to catch burglars, robbers. We want to bring you all more serious cases, white-collar cases, cases that really impact people and their lives. And continually shuffling drug addicts and mentally ill people charged with trespass through our jail at the highest possible expense doesn't make any sense. Not to me.
Well, some of that's got to start with law enforcement. Law enforcement's got to say, okay, do I really want to take myself off the street to take this guy in for a crack pipe with residue?
That's right.
And I know we've heard some mixed messages coming from HPD and from the sheriff's office. What is your opinion on what they're trying to do in terms of those minor drug cases?
We stopped filing trace cases in July of 2017, and we did so with the agreement of HPD, of Pasadena, and of the Sheriff's Department. And the smaller agencies fell in. Many didn't know that the policy had been switched between administrations from acceptance of cases to non-acceptance and back again. They were unaware of it. And so to the average cop, according to the union leaders that I spoke to at the Houston Police Department, they were unaware that the policy had ever changed. Some always did it, some never did it. But we've stopped filing those cases and encouraged them to refer. The problem is there's not enough resources being spent on the treatment side, and we need an answer for our homeless population who's both mentally ill in many instances and addicted.
Yeah, we got a phone call coming in here, so I want to jump over to the phone lines. Hello, thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Hey, Jimmy, how are you?
Hey, Rob, I'm good.
I want to say that to my knowledge, as a past host and a past president of HCCLA, I concur. I believe that Kim Ott is the first district attorney of Harris County to appear on our show. And as the past host and past president of this organization, I'm glad that it's Kim Ott, and we welcome your show, but I'm certainly glad that it's Kim, and welcome Kim onto the show. I'm glad Kim is the first on the show. It makes sense. I've been practicing law for 34 years, and I think Kim Ott represents the best that we've ever had since I've been on the opposite side. I wanted to comment on a couple things y'all said, if you don't mind. Y'all were talking in agreement here, which is something new that we see between the district attorney's office and the defense bar, which is very welcome. And it seems like there's agreement between the defense bar and the district attorney's office that the courts requiring people to come to court every 30 days is a needless thing and a waste of time. And one of you posed the question, well, why do they keep doing it? And I will pose this suggested answer to you. I believe that many of the judges require defendants to come to court every 30 days because it's used as a mechanism to coerce pleas out of people, just as the systematic denial of PR bonds was used to coerce pleas. So that's my answer to that question. I really like the idea that, as I understand it, the district attorney's office and the defense bar are in agreement that there should be longer resets. And I wonder what Kim's thoughts are on waiving a defendant's appearance when that person has counsel, and rather than making people leave work and come to court for no particular reason. That's one question I have, and I have a second question, then I'll get off and I'll listen, which is hard for me to do.
Well, first off, Rob Fickman, thank you so much for your comments and your nice compliment, and it's an honor for me to be here. I would entertain the notion of waiving appearances if we can't get rid of these needless settings. And obviously, some courts are probably never going to agree. And so we can talk about that. But I think a concentrated push of the bar and the professionals who, in fact, staff those courts, and that's us, that my prosecutors are in agreement that 3 settings would be enough, and that if the set-offs are long enough in between, that we can get our work done. And I feel confident that the defense bar would as well. And if we have outliers that don't get their work done, then there's ways of handling that, without punishing everyone else.
That was one of the proposals the defense bar, made to the judges, that if they bond out and they've hired a lawyer, give them an immediate 90-day reset. There is no reason for them to be coming in that time frame.
And we'd agree to that. And if we need a hearing for bond conditions, we can ask for one. I mean, things do change. So, you know, that's what the courts are for, is for contested hearings, not for shuffling papers and people.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I agree with you all 100% on those 2 proposals of waiving appearance and longer resets, and I've advocated that for some time. But I don't. I have a disagreement about this. And I understand that you want to have something fixed, but I'm not sure I would agree with the 3-setting rule. But I have one other question that's more to the point, and that's this. Alex represents the Public Defender's Office. Tucker represents 700 members of the defense bar, and you, Kim Ogg, represent the District Attorney's Office. Y'all represent basically all the lawyers, or the vast majority of lawyers that appear in front of the criminal courts, the district courts and the county courts. So to me, your opinions should count. And I heard rumor that after the storm and since the storm, that y'all sought a meeting. And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I want the truth. And that is, I heard rumor that that y'all sought a meeting with the county courts and a separate meeting with the district court judges, and that they've declined the storm to meet with y'all. And if that's true, I think the public needs to know it. And I'll shut up and get off the phone and listen to y'all.
Well, I'll say go first and let Kim go. I reached out to both Judge Goodhart, who's the head of the misdemeanor, and then Judge Brown, head of the felony. We did have conversations. I did ask for meetings. I did ask to be included on these decisions that are being made. And we had a board meeting of HCCLA. We outlined some proposals. We gave them to the judges. And again, nothing was done.
Yes, Rob, I know you're not really sorry for asking that question. I thought I'd just point that out, having known you as long as I have. I, too, sought meetings with both of them. Those requests were declined. I did speak with both judges on the phone, but it was clear to me from the first day we appeared after Harvey that my request was probably falling on deaf ears, and I'm sorry to hear that. And I've told both judges, administrative judges, how much I respect them and their position, and how important I felt it was during this time of national disaster to be collaborative so that we could more efficiently use our precious resources that protect people's freedom and that make public safety possible. And unfortunately, that was rejected.
From the Public Defender's Office, how are you proceeding with your office in light of Harvey and in light of maybe some lack of channels of communications open?
Well, I attended the HCCLA board meeting. I agreed with the proposal that was presented to the judges. I did not make a separate demand to meet with them. I've talked to Paula Goodhart. I've talked to Susan Brown, but we've yet to have any meaningful discussion, which is kind of unusual because I'm part of the coordinating council. There's a number of ways that the major players in the criminal justice system have discussions, and part of it's attributed to the fact that this is kind of a chaotic situation, but still there should be more attempts to get together and talk about these things. And I think enough time has gone on that we can't just simply say, well, there was a storm and that's the reason why we couldn't get together. I think we need to have those serious conversations.
We don't believe, the three of us sitting here, that our system will sustain the status quo. And I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but I have met with them and I've seen and witnessed the public safety concerns they have about moving inmates from the jail to the courts for needless settings, especially when they don't even appear in front of the court many times. And in the new setting, in the jail, it's really impossible for the defense counsel to meet with their client and talk with them. So, you know, the settings would be fruitful if we were pleading cases or if we were trying cases. And we could do that even almost in the jail if we could get a jury in there. And so it's, you know, whatever the source of the reticence to meet with us, I'm sorry, because I do believe that collaboration would serve our citizens better. And I think that's the responsibility of all elected people, whether you're elected the president of the defense bar, or whether you're elected the district attorney, or whether you're elected judge.
Right. We got another call coming in, so
It's probably one of the
keep it rolling.
judges.
It might be. Let's see. Hello. Thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Yeah, it's definitely me, Damon, not Hickman.
Judge Parrish, soon to be, right?
Yeah, you're right. So I have a question for you. In light of the new immigration decision that came out, and especially of how pretrials relate in Harris County, is there going to be a change reflective of that new immigration decision, and as far as pretrial interventions or pretrial applications?
Great question.
So if I may elaborate.
Which immigration ruling? Senate Bill 4 or what?
Well, if you admit guilt in a pretrial intervention or diversion program, immigration decision to the courts have said that, well, they're going to use that in and consider it to be much like they do a deferred, or they'll consider it to be a conviction, or they will use it to, it will adversely affect you in your immigration proceeding. So prior to this ruling, there had been some other immigration decisions that had said, yes, an admission in open court, pretrial intervention or diversion may be used against you, but now it's, hey, look, you do a pretrial intervention packet or a diversion packet, and you admit that you're guilty, you confess in your confession letter, and you take responsibility. At that point, immigration will consider that to be a conviction, so to say, or an admission of guilt to be used against you in an immigration proceeding.
Well, and I think the crux of the opinion was that it's the fact that a court was involved. And we had a discussion where we were talking about pretrial intervention where maybe courts not be involved for other reasons other than because we weren't discussing this case. But I think that's the importance of this case is when you have these pretrial interventions where the court is sanctioning it, that is what the Bureau of Immigration Affairs was saying is maybe the crux of why it is a conviction for their purposes.
I think that my concern with the way pretrial intervention is being handled in the courts right now is that it was intended to be an option for prosecutors to use in their discretion in appropriate cases. And it was envisioned, and the legislative history is that it was to be a private contract, if you will, between the accused and the prosecution. And so court approval was implemented before I became the DA, and it's sort of changed the nature of the intent behind the law. And so, yes, I am very interested in looking at ways to improve our pretrial intervention system and offers. And what the judges have suggested to me, the administrative judges, is that if they don't order probation to supervise these people, then that gives them the right to approve or disapprove of the agreement. I'm sorry, if they do issue an order, and that absent an order, probation can't supervise these folks. Likewise, pretrial services. I don't agree with that entirely. But I think there's other things that we can look at that will return that process to what it was intended to be, purely prosecution discretion.
Right, and the way you looked at it in the old days is you sat on the file for a period of time, and then you could always refile it, come back at it if they didn't do what they were supposed to do. But it was a contract between the defendant and the district attorney's office.
Yeah, I've been very disturbed by the judicial intervention in that process. And so I think that's an area that we've been talking about it before Harvey, but I think it becomes more significant to a specific population, namely anybody who's not a citizen of the United States. And that affects a lot of people in Harris County. So yes, I will look at it.
Well, and I told this story before on the show, but it goes, my story really encompasses everything we're talking about tonight, because I got hired on a case up in McLennan County in Waco, and there was a prostitution sting in which it netted 200 and something people.
Baptists.
Yes, exactly. who like to dance. Who like to dance off campus. But my client was charged with a misdemeanor. We never went to court. I emailed with the district attorney. They emailed me all the discovery. We were communicating on everything via email or by phone, and in fact, most of my communications was with the paralegal within the DA's office. Once the DA himself, the ADA himself, approved the pretrial diversion for the client, I was sent a pretrial diversion packet via email. I went over it with my client who lived in McLennan County over the phone. I emailed it to him. We decided this is what we're going to do. I drove up to Waco one time to meet with him and the paralegal for the district attorney's office. We never went to court. We signed it. The dismissal was signed the same day, walked over to the court, and it was done. I made one drive to Waco, never met with the ADA, never appeared before the judge, and we had the whole pretrial diversion done within 45 days.
Do you think that's possible in a county this large?
Sure it is. It's everything's possible.
Yeah.
It's a matter of political will and the law. And the law supports this option for prosecutors to utilize their discretion. It doesn't mean that there'll ever be a blanket program where everybody of a certain who meets certain criteria will always get it. I'm opposed to that. I really believe in individualized justice and evaluating every case on its own terms. That's what we're supposed to do. So, yes, I'm for something like that. In fact, the idea of fewer court settings would necessitate that kind of interaction, which is healthy, it's efficient, and it gets the job done. And the problem is the deprivation of the supervisory ability to suggest to me that I won't be allowed to have probation supervise people has been something that I've had to really work through. And I think there's other answers, and I'm exploring all of those other options. There's third-party service providers where people can perform community service. The food bank is a great example. Getting people to work cleaning up after this storm. There's an option.
I bet the bondsmen would love to get in on supervising people for pretrial diversion, but they're not going to be,
so
since they're
there's a
unhappy
lot.
about the
There's a
bonds.
lot of options, and everything is possible. That's what's so exciting about these times. Yes, we suffered a national disaster, but we see it as an opportunity for change that people want and deserve.
Let's grab another phone call here, because phone lines are lighting up tonight.
Good.
Hello, thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Hey, good evening, everyone.
How's it going?
Hey, I have a question for y'all.
Yeah.
Okay, so rumor is that the crime rate has been spiraling, in that it's been spiking, but we haven't been allocating law enforcement resources to match the spike. Can y'all comment on the veracity of that claim?
That's not a question for me. Anybody here know about that?
I haven't heard anything about
Well,
that.
I know that the FBI is releasing new crime rates. They're really not new. They're for 2016, and they're going to be announcing that on Monday. I know that locally we've seen an increase in robberies and that burglaries have been at epidemic rates, but the murder rate is down. And certainly the number of overall case filings is down because we've diverted about 10,000, so far about 2,500 marijuana cases. But we anticipate the full impact to be about 10% of the total docket. 10,000 cases out of about 110,000. So overall filings are down, and I don't know what it's doing to UCR Part 2 crimes, property crimes. So haven't seen those statistics released. Don't know about the deployment of resources. I know that this police chief and our sheriff are on it and filed cases all the way through the disaster, but they only filed the ones they had to. Looters, People trying to hurt each other. It was really interesting to see that even a hurricane doesn't deter a few people. But they maintained law and order during the worst disaster in the country, and we kept intake up and running. That was our small slice of our small contribution, but it was significant. We had people, in the same office for 6 days straight, working 24 hours a day, and I want to compliment them. So I can't speak to the deployment of resources in law enforcement as to its impact on the crime rate, but I do know that we're way down on murders. We're a little up on robberies, and burglaries have been unacceptably high for some time.
What for both you, Alex and Kim? What is the impact that y'all believe may be coming down the line financially on each of y'all's budgets with the aftermath of this whole thing?
Well, I assume that the county's going to say the budgets are being tightened. I don't expect that I will be asked to take any staff away. I probably won't grow this year, but I don't think we're going to take a hit in any way.
How about you, Kim?
Well, I've been at the table with the director of budget management. He's like the CFO of the county or the controller of the city. And I know that they have a lot of concern about keeping budgets even so that no layoffs will be forced in different departments. And I think that's a honorable approach, that they are most concerned about preserving jobs, health care, pension for county employees. So I know that it's been expressed to me by the CFO, that's what I call him, that they're going to try to keep the budgets level, same as they were last year. And I'm hoping that too. But I would suggest to everybody that as we have been doing, it's important to look at your expenditures and make sure they're all truly necessary and prepare for a tightening of the belt, because property values are going to take a hit. And we're all paid, all county employees are paid through the proceeds of property taxes. And if people claim that their property has lost value because they had 4 feet of water in their house, they probably have a righteous case.
Although
So
those of us that didn't flood, we'll probably see our property values go way
Yeah,
up.
they'll spike us.
They'll even it out by tripling our property values,
So
I'm sure.
we've been reassured that they're going to really attempt no layoffs. And I've assured our staff, and that's, I think, an important thing for our employees who are in uncomfortable situations to remember, that we have jobs with regular paychecks, which these folks don't. And I've been one of these folks. So, it's a scary time if you're a small practitioner.
Yeah.
But our folks have jobs, they have pensions, they have health insurance. So it's hot in the building, you're cramped, you're far away from the courthouse, and we're still happy just to be at the dance.
Tucker, what do you think the concerns are for private lawyers who are on appointments? I mean, I've seen some reports of vouchers getting denied, and
That's been going on with some of the new judges, the vouchers. That's an issue, particularly now, because we're having to do a lot of the court-appointed lawyers are doing overtime, in that they had a standard you can only have a certain number of cases a day, but they've waived that, and you're supposed to be able to get paid on all these cases. And I'm hoping it's supposed to continue through the end of the month, and it may continue through October. It needs to. Now, for the private bar, I remember going through this. I was in private practice when Allison hit. Our business is going to drop off for 6 to 9 months. People, the last thing they may want to do is have the money to hire a lawyer. And it's not so much that the cases aren't there, it's just they don't have the money to hire lawyers, to hire top quality lawyers. And they may go, try and go on the cheap or something like that. It's just the top tier lawyers, I think they're going to suffer for about 6 to 9 months till this gets going again.
Alex, as the chief public defender, how have you seen your office affected by some of the Harvey, the staggered dockets? Are you seeing any changes in the way y'all's office does business?
Well, yeah, we've made a few changes. Eric Davis is head of the felony division. He's made some changes about having, for instance, a team of lawyers that have, take cases for 1 week, and then we go on to another set of lawyers that do that, and that gives lawyers time to work on their cases when they're not having to go to court, especially with all these extra dockets. So these days you have to be in court a lot. We had a seminar today, and a lot of people I think missed because they were stuck in court.
Which I saw, by the way, which was great.
Yeah, it was very good. And Rob Fickman, our caller, was one of the speakers. He was great. But, we're very reactive. I'd say our attitude is very positive. I got a call from somebody from the press the other day, and I said, I don't mean to say we're having a good time, but everybody's got a really good attitude about it, and we're kind of working together to do it. The county was very good to employees. For one thing, they said, if you're helping others, if you're volunteering, we'll consider that work. You'll be paid for that. So that was really good because we have both offices. We have administrative staff that really can't work if they don't have an office. So they were allowed to do things like that. That was all good. So, it's very disrupting. I don't like not being in my office, but we're working through it.
I know, I think we do have a call.
Yeah, let's catch another phone call here. Hello, thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Jimmy,
Yep.
it's Rob again.
Man, you got call number 2? You got through a second time. That's impressive.
Well, that's the prerogative of a former host. I asked y'all a question that there was a rumor, and all three of you answered it diplomatically. And now I'm going to say, I'd just like to add a comment, if I may. And that is, after having heard the answers of Alex and Tucker and District Attorney Kim Ogg regarding the judiciary's response to your request to meet, I would point out to our viewers, to your viewers, that all elected officials have a shared duty to work in the best interest of the citizenry, the people that elected them. As Kim just pointed out, this city just went through a horrible, devastating storm that has closed down our criminal courthouse, not for the first time, but for the second time in 16 years. And I'll say it bluntly. It is absolutely outrageous that the judges, the criminal judges, both county and district court judges, will not meet with our elected district attorney. I'm a liberal Democrat, and I'm saying that. So for me to say it, it's got to be pretty extreme. It's outrageous that they won't meet with our district attorney. It's outrageous that they won't meet with our representatives of the defense bar. And frankly, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. They need to meet with these folks. You can't have a criminal justice system, even this criminal justice system, without lawyers, prosecutors and defense lawyers. And these judges need to show some respect to the opinions of the defense bar and the prosecutors and the public defender's office. It's absolutely outrageous. And I hope the public gets irritated by this, and the judges should be ashamed of themselves. I appreciate you letting me air my opinion. The judges mostly know them anyway, so there.
There's one
Thanks,
thing.
Rob.
There's one thing that has been circulating, that property rooms throughout the county have been destroyed. We've heard this through the courts. It's rumors. It could just be the thoughts, and one thing leads to another, and before you know it, we've heard property rooms have been destroyed. From the district attorney's office, have you all heard of any of property rooms being destroyed, or is that something that you're still looking into? Because I do know that one issue that we've encountered in courts is the receipt of evidence. So videos, or getting in touch with certain crime labs, or making requests and having those requests become timely to court. Have you heard, or do you know of any issues with any property rooms?
Yes, I've heard from and am in touch with almost all of the law enforcement agencies, obviously the larger ones more than the small ones. Precinct 4 had a room that flooded, and they have moved some evidence to the sheriff's department. And if there's damage or something that's going to impact the case or the veracity of the evidence, then you will get, as an individual lawyer, a notification from our office. If we see a widespread impact, more than a few cases, then we'll do a mass disclosure. But I'm committed to timely notification. Right now, I've been assured that nothing is destroyed. But is it damaged? I want to make sure that we know that. As for the labs, they were so glad to start meeting with the district attorney's office. And so I hold regular meetings with both of our labs, the county and the city, and have met with them yesterday about increasing the average turnaround time on these small dope cases. Right now it's about 10 days at the city lab, and the county lab, I can't tell you, I'm not sure, but it's anything we can do. Right now, our investigations, murders, rapes, that still needs to be a priority. But pending murders, rapes, robberies, our more serious cases where we know we're not going to be in trial at least for another month, month and a half, I've asked them if they would consider prioritizing small drug cases so that we could collaborate with the defense lawyers and try and move these cases through plea bargains or through pretrial diversion or through dismissal. So bail and jail cases are affected. Dope is by far the lion's share of the evidence that we need on a timelier basis. And I think they're open to it. They certainly were willing to talk about it. And they've suffered in the past from a lack of communication, I think, with not just the district attorney's office, but the major parties in the criminal justice system. We all have a stake in the labs. Our tax dollars all pay for it. Authenticity of the evidence is critical to public trust. And so I find them to be really important players. The DPS lab, they're a real outlier. And, you know, we continue to have problems with delay on drug cases, even large drug cases from DPS. So I'm engaged in conversation with them, but as you know, they're a state agency, and they've been deployed from hither to yon to protect our borders and highways.
I will say that I'm getting discovery from DPS from a different building out on the west, out on the west side. So I don't know if they're changing where you pick up the discovery because all the discovery was destroyed or damaged in the initial building or not. But that is something that, particularly with DPS, that I am bringing to your attention.
Yeah, I have not received notice of that, and they're under an obligation. So I told you about Precinct 4. Like I said, we'll mass notify as soon as we know or can verify there's any problem. But I think that's more grass fire rumor than forest fire, you know, truth.
Well, it might be just one reason. Judge, we need a reset. We don't know about the property room. It's kind of flooded. Might not be. We need a reset. Might be one of those things.
You might get some sympathy on that. Let's see if we can sneak another call in here before we get off the air. Thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
Hey, man, speaking of previous show host prerogative.
Oh, gosh, you're back.
Mr. D.
I
Parrish.
got another question.
Just won't go away, will you?
This is the easy one.
Okay.
I guess it's for Kim Ogg. Where are your guys officing and to quash those rumors, and what's the discovery or how to obtain discovery? How's it going to be done now?
So our trial court prosecutors, the misdemeanor division is on the 16th floor in a big common space of the Clayton-Anderson building, or Anderson-Clayton building, which used to be called the Old Cotton Exchange, corner of Prairie and Carolyn. Also, our bond forfeiture division, victim witness, and check fraud are there. And then at the Juvenile Justice Center, we've got the Juvenile Division, Mental Health Division, and our IT section. Our felony prosecutors are out off the Galleria, West Loop South, in what's known as the old RTC buildings. Special Crimes is out there as well, which includes family law, which means we have a lot of public traffic there. So those are the primary locations right now. Discovery is being handled in the traditional manner. Call up the lawyers, email them, let them know what you're looking for, and they should be able to get it for you. And I hope they can get it on a timely basis. If not, let me know where there's systemic problems, and I'll work with the source agencies to speed up that time.
I got my first call today for saying, hey, you can come pick your discovery up out in the Galleria.
Well, there's a lot of nice lunch areas.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
a lot
some
of
shopping done at the
restaurants.
same time.
That's what I sold
exactly
the
right.
prosecutors on, a major shopping area.
Right.
But they're making do. They've got a good attitude. I hope y'all will join us in that good attitude and know that e-discovery is coming. We're going to get it loaded onto a portal. It's a priority of my administration, And this disaster is our opportunity for the change that we've all wanted and needed for many years.
Good. Let's sneak one more call in here before we get off the air in the next couple of minutes. Hello, thanks for calling Reasonable Doubt.
I have a question. I go down to the jail docket every once in a while, and I have a question about whether or not all people that go there feel as unsafe as I do as a lawyer, whether they be prosecutors or defense attorneys. But it begs a bigger question. Why can't the people that are incarcerated be brought over to the civil courthouse or to the other courthouses?
Great question. I would think because they don't have a holdover cell at the civil courthouse, they can't be brought over there. But, you know, I've seen some chatter back and forth about the concern that many people are having on the jail dockets over at the jail, obviously. That the inmates, there's a crowd of inmates, they're not cuffed. There's the guard to inmate ratio is 1 to 12, I think, in some instances. And, you know, there's debate going back and forth, but, you know, what you said earlier, Kim, about the stress of bringing them over to court to not see a judge. Everybody's under stress. I mean, it's just, it does seem like it could be a recipe for disaster. I mean, some of these people may have been incarcerated since before the storm. They don't know what's happened to their family. I mean, any little thing could set anybody off.
Yeah, I think that's true. Security concerns for the lawyers, for the other court participants are critical. And I think our sheriff shares those concerns. There are no holding cells, evidently, or insufficient ones in the civil courthouse. The misdemeanor courts are over in the family courthouse, and there are some cells there because I've tried cases with involving inmates over there. So part of it could just be the lack of brick and mortar assets, and part of it could be other concerns that we're just not aware of. But I think that focusing on security is something that we owe everyone, and I'll talk to the sheriff about it. Again, fewer settings, more meaningful opportunities to get in front of judges with contested hearings or trials. That's what I believe our people need.
I don't want to belittle anyone's fear about being in a courtroom, but our lawyers at the Defender's Office, we've been at 49 San Jacinto doing bail hearings, you know, a month before any of these jail dockets have. We're always down there in an open courtroom. I do them too, with defendants who are not shackled, and we walk about freely within the jail. It is something to get used to. So far, we haven't had any problems. In fact, they're glad we're there. You know, they're glad that we're willing to, you know, be there with them and represent them in the bail hearing. So if you haven't done it before, I can see why it'd be scary, but...
Well, and I can see if you're a prosecutor too, why it would be scary.
Yeah, well, we're not generally the most popular
yeah,
parties
exactly.
in court.
You're not there handing out iPhones if you're a prosecutor. So, you know, you're not going to be the most popular person in the building. But that's, guys, we're out of time. This hour's blown by. I want to thank each of you, Alex Bunin, Kim Ogg, and Tucker Graves, for coming on this show. We really appreciate y'all making the time to come on and discuss what's going on in the county. I know a lot of people have been asking questions. We had a lot of phone calls, hopefully we answered all your calls. But please go follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and you can hear all about our upcoming episodes and see what other news and notes we have. But that's all the time we have for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next week with another new episode of Reasonable Doubt. Good night.